For question number 13, we want to use the properties of logarithms to rewrite the expression. Simplify the result if possible and assume that all variables represent positive real numbers. Now these are the properties of logarithms. I have these in blue here. We have properties of logarithms. The first one is called the product property of logarithms. And you have a log of a base, log base b of rs. That's a product, r times s. You can rewrite it by expanding it, breaking it apart into two logarithms, log base b of r and log base b of s, and you put a plus sign in between. The second property of logarithms is called the quotient property of logarithms. If you have log base b of a quotient, r divided by s, you can break that up into two logarithms, where the numerator, log base b of the numerator, minus log base b of the denominator. Break it up into two parts. The next is called the power property of logarithms, log base b of r raised to a power. That power you can bring out in front. It's just a way we can simplify logarithms. If you have log base b of b, if the base b is the same as the argument b, then the exponent is equal to 1. That's a property that you want to remember. Write these down on a note card and look at them regularly so you can memorize these. The next property is if you have log base b, if the argument is 1, that the log is always going to equal 0. And then finally the last one, if you have a base raised to a log base b of r, the base b raised to the log base b are like inverses, they're going to cancel out and you get r. Let's reduce those and look at how we can simplify this logarithm, rewriting it by using the properties of logarithms. So we have log base 3 of 7y divided by z. We are going to use, first we're going to use the quotient property of logarithms because we have a quotient here. We're going to break this up into two logarithms, writing it as log base 3 of the numerator and log base 3 of the denominator, and putting a minus sign in between. The properties, the quotient property involves putting a minus sign in between. The next property we're going to use is the product property, the first one. We're going to use that with the 7y, log base 3 of 7y. We can break up the 7 and the y and write this as log base 3 of 7 and log base 3 of y, and put a plus sign in between using the first property of logarithms, and then write the log base 3 of z minus log base 3 of z. So that looks like choice D. Okay, so we're using the properties of logarithms to rewrite the expression. I've used the first two properties for this example. Okay, let's look at number 14. Here we have the log base 4 of 8 square root of 3 over 5. Okay, let's use the quotient property first because we have a numerator and a denominator here. We're going to write this as log base 4 of the numerator, 8 square root of 3, and log base 4 of the denominator. And we're going to put a minus sign in between. Now we're going to break apart this 8 square root of 3, writing that as two separate logs. Log base 4 of 8 and log base 4 of the square root of 3 with a plus sign in between, minus log base 4 of 5. So that's the next step in expanding this logarithm, single logarithm, writing it as 3 logarithms. So we've used the first two properties. Now I do want to point out we can go further here. The square root of 3 the square root of 3, that's the same thing as 3 to the 1/2 power. So I'm going to write this, the first log base 4 of 8 plus log base 4 of 3 to the 1/2 power minus log base 4 of 5. Now I'm going to use the power property, this one here. Anytime you have an argument raised to a power, this power I'm going to move out in front. So this becomes log base 4 of 8 plus this 1/2 power. I'm going to move it out in front of the logarithm. That's that property, that third property of logarithms. And write everything else the same. Now I can make my choice on my math lab and check your work. Let's look at number 15. Okay, number 15, we want to use the properties of logarithms to rewrite the expression, simplify the result. Now, out of all of these properties, we have the problem log base 6 of 2x plus 5y. Well, there is no property that has a plus sign in the argument. There is no property that has a plus sign. So we can say that this cannot be simplified. That is not, there's no way to break that up because it has a plus sign. Nothing here has a plus sign in it. So we say it cannot be simplified. Make that choice and check your answer. Okay, let's look at number 16. We want to use the properties of logarithms to rewrite the expression, simplify the results. Here we have log base 13 of AB divided by CD. We're going to use the quotient property to break up that numerator and the denominator. So we can write this as log base 13 of AB minus log base 13 of CD. Now we want to break up using the first property of logarithms, the quotient property. We're going to break up the AB and the CD. To write this as log base 13 of A and log base 13 of B with a plus sign in between. Minus, I'm going to put this part in parentheses, log base 13 of C and log base 13 of D. Since it's the first property, we put a plus sign in between it. But don't forget that we had a minus that entire quantity. So we are going to distribute that and write our final answer as log base 13 of A plus log base 13 of B minus log base 13 of C minus log base 13 of D. Make your choice and check your answer. Okay, look at number 17. Number 17, we want to write the expression as a single logarithm with coefficient 1. So in this case, we're going to work backwards. We have, using the first property of logarithms, we have these two logarithms split with a plus sign. We're going to do that with these two logarithms here. Write the first two, we call it condensing. Condense the logarithm so we can write it as log base d of x times y. See that? Two logs split with a plus sign, condense it to get one log of the product. Minus log base d of m. Now we're going to use the second property of logarithms, the quotient property, to combine these two. They're split with a minus sign to get log base d. If they're split with a minus sign, we write it as a quotient. xy in the numerator, m in the denominator. So log base d of xy over m. Make your choice and check your answer.